Hello, welcome to Lead Without Leaving. I am Angela M. Houston, and I have with me the wonderful author, KA Simpson. Um, and he is the founder of the Sparklight Creative Group. He's a self-published author, a serial entrepreneur, a community enthusiast, and a lover of everything creative. So let's welcome KA Simpson. How are you doing today?
Good. That was an amazing. I don't have anything else to say now. That was like the most. You can just drop the mic right now.
Thank you. Yay. I'm super excited to be interviewing you. I've been wanting to interview you for a really long time. So today we're going to focus on LGBTQ education. We already have an article written on our blog, and we're going to drop the link below there so that you guys can check that out on angelamhouston.com. But tell us a little bit about your experience and how you became an author, but even your experience growing up.
So I am a native Northern Kentuckian, and yes, I do wear my shoes in Northern Kentucky. It's a fairly urban area. We're actually just south across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. So even though I definitely represent Northern Kentucky, I'm definitely a city boy, Midwestern city boy at that. And the area is very similar to other Midwestern urban spaces where you have a pocket of African Americans living in a community. And with that, where it intersects with kind of like the LGBTQ community, those of us of a certain age grew up not seeing a lot of representation, especially being African American, seeing African American LGBTQ folk out there. So that's kind of where my story starts. It definitely doesn't end there. As you know, Angela, that you go on to do bigger and better things and you find more and more experiences, but that's kind of where my experience started. I went through kind of high school and early years of college not really knowing where I fit in, either in the African American community or in the LGBT community because of that beginning point. And then you throw in that I'm a non-commissioned Army officer. So I was in the military for 4.5 years during the don't ask, don't tell phase of the military. And so that throws a whole nother obstacle into kind of finding your own comfortable space of living. Right. So that's kind of where it started.
Right. So trying to figure out, like, where do I fit in this predominantly white area as a Black male, and then also as someone who is a part of the LGBTQ community, because even in the Black spaces, being a Black male who is gay, that's like, no, we don't do that, right? So even trying to figure out how to be a man in that space, and not having anyone to look up to or those role models in either aspect.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Don't get me wrong. You kind of have to carve out your own space, and it's just difficult to find those spaces where you're safe. And so one of the reasons why I got into writing, where I published a number of my self-published books, is to help others find that safe space of existence, letting them know that people can live in this kind of quote unquote alternative world, live safely, and there's other folks out there. I just think if I had known that there was this community of Black gay folk out there when I was younger, I think it might have been an easier transition into adulthood. We're already kind of screwed up as teenagers. I don't care how well you think your life is. We're trying to find ourselves. What's that?
You froze on me a little bit, but now you're back.
Okay. So it's just a different tumultuous time. And if I knew that there was that out there, I think it might have been an easier transition. And that's one of the reasons why I started writing. I wanted to create a space that I felt, I got tired of waiting for other people to create that space. So I said, well, I'm just going to try to create it myself and see what happens.
I love that. You keep saying carve out your own space, create your own space. And that's hard for adults to do. It's really super hard for kids to do. So how would you suggest that a teacher do that for kids?
So one of the things is that for one thing, I love teaching. I mean, you're a teacher. My mom is a lifelong teacher for 40 years. I mean, in the medical space, but still a teacher. And that's kind of, and I feel that I'm a teacher as well. And one of the things is to help your student facilitate that creating a space or finding their space where they feel comfortable. Because the only way that our kids are going to succeed easily, or we want to facilitate that ease of creativity, and you can be the most creative, I think, in a space where you feel comfortable. So kind of urging that, and teachers already have kind of a willingness and a want to facilitate creativity and learning. You wouldn't be teachers, right? If you
Right.
didn't want to help people to
We love
learn.
the kids. We want them to grow. Yes.
So kind of carving it in, and sometimes the kids have to tell you what their safe space is, or at least listen to them and say and try to find out more about that safe space through them, and not just saying, well, I'm an educator, I know where the safe space lies. And not all the times do we. No. I know one thing, being kind of like a pseudo kind of educator or teacher, is that I learn things every single day.
Mhm.
And a lot of times when I do have a class or I'm giving a presentation, I learn things from my students.
Mhm.
So I might be the person facilitating and giving education, but there might be, out of 75 things that I teach the kids, I might learn 2 or 3 from them. So just learning that you can still be a student while being an educator.
Right. That I love that, because I know for me, I need to shut up. I talk a lot. But yes, we have to listen and not be afraid to make mistakes, because I really didn't know anybody who was gay or anything like that. Like, I didn't care, and I knew that it was around, but no one ever came out and said anything, to me about it. And I don't live in that world. So for me as an educator, I'm like, well, how do I navigate this world? What am I supposed to call, the pronouns keep changing, and the letters keep being added, and it's like, for a long time I didn't teach it because I didn't want to say the wrong thing, and I did not want to offend the kids who were a part of that community, and I didn't want to offend the kids who weren't a part of that community, and I didn't want my principal coming in or parents coming in saying anything. So I kind of took the cowardly approach, I'll admit that now. And I wish I would have asked people and sought out the kids, my own students, not been afraid to ask I didn't want to offend them. But I could have also gone to experts and looked at it more. So I've admitted my mistake, and now I'm moving on, and I hope that other teachers who are watching this do the same. Like, because growing up as a Christian, it's like, we're not supposed to do that LGBTQ thing, and then being in education, it's like, you're not supposed to talk about that stuff in school. But you're absolutely right. We need to help kids find their own way and carve out their own spaces. So thank you for coming and enlightening us.
I tried, but yeah, that's the number one thing. I do want to give one advice on all the pronouns. I
Right.
don't know them all.
Okay.
I'm still learning them all. The one thing, definitely reach out to experts. Bonnie Meyer at Northern Kentucky University, who is the director of LGBTQ plus programming. She is amazing. I know it's across the river, and I know it's in Kentucky, but there's been like, for those who don't know, Angela is in Cincinnati and I'm in Northern Kentucky, and our river has always been like a contingent, like people don't cross that river, even though
Right.
Northern Kentucky University is like 5 miles away from.
Not the Kentuckians, not the side.
But she is doing great work in that space and actually starting the first ever in Northern Kentucky Pride Center.
Okay.
In addition, Tim M. West, who is a national educator, he's located here in Cincinnati, and he is the board chair of Greater Cincinnati Black Pride. And so he is doing a lot of great work and facilitating great dialogues around where the LGBTQ community intersects with the Black community, in particular during this time where we are during the Black Lives Matter movement, calling, so where does the LGBTQ community fit in with that? So those two people, I think, are, if you're looking for kind of experts to kind of give advice, those are two people I think teachers, educators should seek out, even if you're not from the area, because like I said, Tim M. West is a national educator. And of course, Bonnie Meyer is a higher ed person. So.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely check them out. You said something. Oh, yes. Black Lives Matter. And I started seeing those shirts that was like, all Black Lives Matter, right? Like, we can't just say like straight lives matter, or a lot of times it's the Black males that we've been focused on and we've forgotten about the women. Well, that's my train in my background. We forgot about the women. We've forgotten about the trans community, you know, gays, lesbians, you know, we forgot about the LGBTQ plus community. And a lot of times we want to shut them out. Like we talked about being gay in the Black community, especially a Black male, is not always seen as positive. And it's kind of cute and fetish, you know, when it's a woman thing, you know, which also needs to stop. You know, we just need to be accepting, and it shouldn't be exotic, and it shouldn't be something that's crazy. It should just be something that is normal. Go ahead.
Well, I think, well, and you bring up a great point, is that when a lot of times when people think the majority, and it's been kind of noted in a lot of different pieces of literature, that when we talk about, when we think about, we just look at how Black males have been unfairly treated in our society. Yes, that's there, and it's usually in the justice system. But let's switch to the medical field, where a lot of African American women, when going through pregnancies or any type of illness, they're kind of judged differently, and that is a life that is a kind of a life triggering event. And that's an area where a lot of African American women are unfairly treated. And then we move into kind of like the African American LGBTQ, that a lot of people don't understand. Most of society doesn't know about, or doesn't think that it exists. But all three of those groups, and those are just three of many, have been unfairly or disproportionately marginalized in our society. So when we talk about all lives matter, or excuse me, all Black lives matter, that's what we're talking about. And then I think it did need to be said, all lives matter. But I think now that we're having talks like this, I think people are getting the understanding that when you say Black lives matter, not only are you letting people know that yes, all lives matter, but Black lives matter too. Also, all of those Black lives matter. So I think we're getting to that. We're starting to get to that point.
Right, right. Yeah, even in our own communities and other communities, yes. And just like we're having this conversation, you know, that'd be like, well, all education matters. Well, yeah, it does. But right now we're talking about LGBTQ education. You know, I'll do another video on remote instruction, and then I'll do another video on English language learners with remote instruction and blended learning. But right now our focus is on the LGBTQ plus community. And you're right, it's the same thing with the All Lives Matter versus the Black Lives Matter. Right now, we are focusing on all Black Lives Matter, that movement, yes.
And before we move on, I just want to give you a shout out, Angela, because this conversation didn't come about because of COVID-19 or because of the drastic murdering of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. We've been having this conversation for over a year. So it's nothing. So I want to give kudos and props to you for starting that conversation early and being ahead of the game. So it just goes to you as an educator that you saw things were coming down the pike and you started it before. So
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I just see things, you know, I may not always listen, but I'm always watching for what's going on. And I know that even though I've been teaching for, 20 years, it's always about getting better. It's always about getting better. And it's always about stepping out of my comfort zone. And for so long I didn't, and I wanted to, and again, I could be doing better. So I want to help other educators know that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to start late. Like, even if they are just now jumping on the bandwagon, that's fine, or even if you did not protest, what are you doing to be anti-racist, to be pro the LGBTQ plus community, to be pro, the Hispanic community, and the Latinx community. We as educators, we're, like you said, we're always growing, and we need to start listening, and maybe getting behind a movement instead of always trying to be in the forefront of things. But yeah, I always want to help my kids feel like they belong, because I grew up also in Northern Kentucky. Don't tell nobody. I moved out when I was
I wasn't going to tell anyone.
I moved out when I was in the 3rd grade, so I'm a Cincinnatian. But even coming from that space, being there and feeling like I didn't belong, and then coming to Cincinnati and everyone's like, you talk white, and it's like, whoa, where do I fit in? So I know all about that, trying to fit in no matter what it is, just where do I belong, and wanting to create that space for kids to belong is important. So tell me about your books.
So I mentioned earlier in the conversation where I started writing to create my own space, to find what that was. And I self-published a book called Chronicles of a Boy Misunderstood.
Do you have that?
And yeah, you do?
No, do you? Where is it?
Oh, I do. I don't have it anywhere near. I should have had it.
Here. Oh my gosh, you are supposed to have your books on you, but that's okay.
I did not even think about that.
Here
Chronicles of a Boy Misunderstood.
Yay.
It is.
Not long. I know some of the kids are like, how long is this book? It's not that long. Go ahead.
I started writing this book when I got out of the military in 2001, because I was 21 when I got out. So I was just like, what am I going to do now? And I started journaling, and it came out to this book. So fast forward 12 years later, it took me 12 years to write this book.
Wow.
This book is a series of 4 short stories, and it starts, each short story has an African American gay lead as the main character. They're all connected. The stories start in 1856. I know, right? There's gay Black people in 1856.
We never talk about, right?
And it goes all the way actually to future 2033, I believe. And it all revolves around the Margaret Garner story, which is, if you don't know Margaret Garner's story, it was the basis of the Pulitzer Prize winning book Beloved by Toni Morrison. And so Margaret Garner actually grew up here in Northern Kentucky. So her story is based in Northern Kentucky. And all 4 of the short stories in my book are set here in Northern Kentucky. Some scenes take place like in Monterey, California, but mostly it's here. And it talks about a lot of the history of Northern Kentucky it's in a fictional setting. So I'm super proud of that. That's my first baby. I'm telling you right now, I'm not having any kids. So this is my baby. He is 10 years old, almost 10 years old now. So that actually, so just a little bit story about the cover model. Mm-hmm. He is an actual person who was born and raised here in Covington. His name is Travis Brown, and he is actually, I think he resides in Ohio, a small town in Ohio. And he actually has done a lot for the LGBT community, formulating his city's first pride. And so this picture, I think, was taken, gosh, probably 12 years ago. And I used to babysit him as a kid, and his mom was a mentor to me at the Boys and Girls Club. And so you're always kind of staying local. So it isn't just a random guy on the cover. It's a person that I've known for actually all of his life.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, because I was going to ask, like, give me some information about this. All right. You also have a Coven's Lament.
Okay, and that is actually what I did. That is actually incorporated now into the current copies of, that's the fourth short story.
Okay.
So that's actually, it can combine with, I turned it into a chronicle. So that short story takes place in 2023, and it kind of culminates all the other three stories in Chronicles. And I think, mystery writing and fiction writing and fantasy writing is so difficult. And then you put a Black man as a lead, or you don't really see it, and then a Black gay man as a lead. And so there were a couple of challenges, but it's more than one thing that I've always written about the way that I kind of move through life is that me being gay is not it does not define me. So, and walking through life, I do walk through as a gay man, but a lot of my experiences in life is not gay oriented. It's more of having the same experience as everyone else has. Okay, where do we find love? How do we find a job? How do we navigate through society? So that's kind of where it all starts. And then you have the underlying stories of how do you do all those things as a Black man? How do you do all those things as a gay man? How do you do all those things as a Black and gay man?
Right.
And so those are all subsets, sub-stories within the story.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So it's not about being blind, because I know people talk about being colorblind or blind, like I don't see you as Black, or I don't see you as gay or anything like that. And I get what they say, because like I don't see you like, oh, let me find this Black gay guy. Like, no. But it is a part of our story. It does sometimes shape us. It does sometimes, you know, put us in situations that we're not comfortable in. And it definitely shapes our experiences. Those things, but it's not like I walk around and that's the first thing that you're supposed to see, or that's what I feel every day.
Right.
But I walk around like I feel like a Black girl. Like that's not right. That's not how I walk around.
Yeah, because the first thing is that I'm a person first. We're all people first. And so there's these experiences that we all face as people. We might face those experiences differently because of how we identify or who we are. But my stories are those classic stories of love, friendship, and relationships. And that's where it starts.
Which is important because some teachers might be like, well, what about my kids who aren't gay? Will they want to read these stories? And it's like, it's for everybody, right? It's just you're just seeing someone else's journey through a different lens or a different perspective. But there's a lot of things, like you said, love and belonging, that's universal. Those are universal themes.
Yeah, for those educators that kind of have that doubt, kind of pick up Harry Potter. And it's a white little boy from England, but then why aren't you asking the question, well, what about my Black girls who are from America? Will they like it because he's a white guy from England? I was like, wait a minute, there's still all of those relationship issues, and it's still a story about living as a person. And so I gotta call them out if they have those specific type of things. So I was like, so what? You read stories about people living in the Hispanic community. You read stories about the Scarlet Letter. I'm sure that's a book many high schoolers read. That's a white woman living back in the day. Would you say, well, what about my Black men? Would they really like that? Well, it's a good piece of literature.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. I love that. Yep, it's all inclusive. The other one I have is Game On.
Game On is a collection. So the full name of that is Game On, essays on go ahead.
Essays of Black Midwestern Gen Xer on living in a pre and post-Obama society.
So even though I am a self-published author, I also have written articles, published articles in national journals, local journals, since around 2001. So in 2016, when stuff was about to hit the fan, when a certain person got into the Oval Office, I'm going to be honest with you, it was the first time that I really became depressed for this nation. And it was clinical. I needed time, and one of the coping mechanisms was to write. So what I did, I accumulated all of my articles from 2001 to 2016. I kind of categorized them and said, well, all this subject revolves around me living in Covington. All these articles revolve around me living in the gay community. And I did about 4 or 5 of those. And I picked some of the best ones and I commentated on what I was feeling growing up as a person, a Midwestern, Black, African-American, gay male living before Obama came and after Obama, because there is definitely a switch and there is definitely a difference. And so, and it also shows how we have come along as a society, because I'm a writer of kind of current events. And so how we think about things has changed over the last 20 years. Who thought that 20 years ago we'd be doing this, or we'd be watching television on a cell phone 20 years ago?
Right.
So the way that we think, process things as a society has changed, and I wanted to document that living as a gay Black man in the Midwest.
All right. And then your other book, which I have not gotten yet, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I
And
don't
I
have it
Talk
with me.
Funny. Where is that one?
So I did not, all my books are in another room, but they say I Talk Funny kind of goes on, it kind of piggybacks on living in a post-Obama society, because the last 4 years, I think a lot of us have had to be a little bit more creative of how we carry ourselves, and how we actually make ourselves known in a present space. So what does that look like? That could be taking on going for another piece of education that you want. It could also be finding it. Basically, it's about finding your a different way of making money. So being an entrepreneur for the most part, unleashing your inner creative to make money, so that you doing something that you love. And so as an entrepreneur since 2004, I've had to reinvent some of the things that I've done, and I've kind of found my niche that with Sparklight Creative Group. And that is basically a personal and professional development company where I basically help you as a person or an organization or a small business get to the next level of development.
Okay.
And that's it in a nutshell.
Cool. All right. And what's that website?
That is sparklightcreates.com.
All right. Sparklightcreates.com, everyone. So we have Chronicles of a Boy Misunderstood, and there are 3 stories in this one. And then we have a Coven's Lament, and it is sci-fi. I love it. I love all 3. I would probably say this one's my favorite. I know you like Chronicles, but I like the ending of this one and the twists and turns and how it all connects. I like this one. But I also liked Game On, because I wanted to use that for my multi-genre unit, since it does have several different, you have some blog stuff in here, then you have some shorter articles, some longer articles. So I wanted to use this as an example of how kids could write their own multi-genre project or write their own book, and how it doesn't have to be like really long, how it could be, like you said, a bunch of little pieces put together. So I definitely like that. And then we also want to get, They Say I Talk Funny, and I will put all the links below. Thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you want to say? Any more advice you have for teachers? Anything else you want to offer?
This is the time to be creative as teachers. This is the time to show the reason why you got into the profession. I do know that there's a lot of kind of like things that you have to do, but we as educators are in a space where we can create a different way of learning and fix some of the traditional and historically damning things that have been going on in the past. So do what you do now, because this is the time to do it.
That's right. That's right. And it does help that it's more accepting now. So we can step out, we can be a little bolder, a little braver. And again, not be afraid to make mistakes, knowing that we will make mistakes. And also reaching out, you talked about Bonnie Meyer at NKU, Tim West, he's the board chair of the Cincinnati Black Pride. We can read your books. We can go to the Sparklight Creative. We can get in touch with you. You'll also do author talks, right?
Right. So I'm actually putting together a winter author series where I talk about give a lot of advice on business planning, resume writing, and also some of the things that the book covers. So look for that. It should be out by the end of this month. I'll have a schedule by the end of this month.
Okay, and I will definitely drop that link below. So thank you so much. I'm finally glad that we got around to doing this. Like you said, it's been in the making, and it's like my schedule, your schedule, do this, do that. And that's the one thing that COVID has done is like everybody's home, put it on the calendar.
Right. Yeah. As long as it's on my calendar, I'm there.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, KA Simpson. It was great interviewing you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Have a good one.